They promised us transcendence. They told us the veil was a thin skin waiting to be peeled back. But tonight, the skin doesn't just peel, it flays. You are tuned into the Occultic Abyss. Tonight's archive, the day the earth drank its fill and the sky forgot how to scream. This is the end of the 666. The air in the cathedral isn't oxygen anymore. It's a thick, metallic soup of copper and frantic prayers. 666 of us stand shoulder to shoulder, our bare feet slick against the cold stone, drenched in the runoff of the sanctified troughs. At the center sits the altar. It's a jagged tooth of obsidian, vibrating so violently it hums in the marrow of your bones. It's not just black, it's a hole in the light. The high priest isn't chanting anymore, he's convulsing. His eyes have rolled back into his skull, showing nothing but a map of ruptured red veins. He plunges the ceremonial glass into the final basin, and the atmosphere turns to lead. My lungs burn. The shadows on the walls aren't following our movements anymore. They're stretching toward the altar, hungry, detached from our bodies. The Zenith isn't a moment of peace. It's a pressure. It's the feeling of 1,000 invisible needles pressing against your eardrums. We were told we would see God. But as the altar begins to moan, a sound of grinding tectonic plates and human sobbing, I realize we aren't being blessed. We are being weighed. And the abyss is finding us delicious. The silence that follows the priest's final convulsion is worse than the screaming. It's a vacuum. A sudden, agonizing drop in pressure that makes our collective pores weep beads of thin, watery blood. Every eye in the cathedral is locked on the altar. Then it happens. It doesn't shatter like glass. It tears. A single, hairline fracture zigzags down the face of the obsidian monolith. The sound isn't stone breaking. It's the sound of a scream being played backward at a deafening volume. A foul, freezing wind begins to whistle out of that tiny crack, a draft from a basement that hasn't been opened since the birth of the stars. It smells of ancient salt, wet earth, and something rotting that was never alive to begin with. The crack widens. The edges of the stone start to curl inward, liquefying into a substance that looks like oily smoke but feels harder than diamond. Gravity begins to fail. A woman near the front, a true believer who had been weeping in ecstasy, is the first to be touched. As the fracture exhales, her hair begins to float upward, standing on end, not toward the ceiling, but toward the altar. Then her skin follows. I watch in paralyzed terror as the top layer of her dermis begins to peel away in dry, translucent flakes, sucked into the growing black maw of the altar. She doesn't even scream yet. She's too busy watching her own reflection in the obsidian dissolve into a distorted, elongated shadow. The altar begins to pulse with a negative light, a color that doesn't exist in the human spectrum, a bruised ultraviolet that makes your retinas throb. With every pulse, the fracture spreads. It crawls across the floor like a lightning bolt made of ink, splitting the stone beneath our feet. One of the sacrificial troughs is severed, and the blood inside doesn't spill out. It flows upward, forming a swirling, crimson helix that feeds directly into the crack. The structure of the cathedral begins to groan in protest. The heavy oak rafters overhead twist like wet cardboard. The space between us is stretching. I reach out to the man next to me, but though he's only a foot away, my hand feels like it's reaching across a canyon. His face is a mask of pure, primal horror as his facial features begin to slide. His eyes drifting toward his ears, his mouth stretching into an impossible vertical oval. The fracture isn't just breaking the altar. It's breaking the geometry of the room. It's breaking the math of our bodies. We are no longer 666 individuals. We are a single mass of meat and terror being prepared for the swallow. The altar groans one last time, a wet, splintering sound, and the darkness inside the crack begins to blink, like 1,000 eyes opening at once in the dark. The altar didn't explode with fire. Fire is a mercy of the physical world. Fire consumes, it does not erase. When the obsidian monolith finally gave way, It was a detonation of absence. The stone didn't fly outward. It was pulled into a singular, microscopic point of infinite weight before rebounding in a shockwave of cold, violet-black lightning. The sound was a sound extinguisher. It didn't just deafen us, it deleted the very concept of hearing. For a heartbeat that felt like a century, the 666 of us stood in a world without noise, watching the shockwave ripple through the air like a pebble thrown into a pond of liquid mercury. Then, the shockwave hit the front row. I watched as the high priest was hit by the negative light. He didn't burst, he shattered into a billion dark particles, like a cloud of starlings taking flight. One moment he was a man of flesh and bone. The next, he was a silhouette of drifting soot hanging in the air, his scream frozen in a silent, crystalline trail of vapor. The detonation didn't move fast. It moved with an agonizing, predatory slowness, claiming us inch by inch. The shards of the altar, those jagged, cursed fragments, didn't fall to the ground. They became fixed points in space. They hovered, glowing with a sickly, rhythmic throb, acting as anchors for the abyss. Between these shards, the air began to bruise. Great, purple welts appeared in the sky of the cathedral, weeping a thick, black ichor that burned holes through the stone floor. The detonation turned the solid granite into a liquid mire. Not lava, but a freezing, viscous oil. People began to sink. I saw a young man, no older than 20, trying to run. With every step, his legs sank deeper into the stone as if it were quicksand. By the time the shockwave reached him, he was waist-deep in solid rock. When the negative light washed over him, the part of him above the stone evaporated into black mist, leaving his legs fused forever into the cathedral floor, a permanent, fleshy monument to the ritual's success. The 666 were no longer a congregation. We were a harvest. The detonation continued to expand, but it began to loop time. I saw the same stone pillar collapse 100 times, each time falling in a different direction, defying the laws of gravity. I saw my own hands begin to transparency. I could see the bones, then the marrow, then the very atoms vibrating in fear. The air became thick with ghost echoes. We could see ourselves standing where we were 5 minutes ago, and we could see ourselves dying 5 minutes from now. Every time the abyssal core, the hole where the altar once stood, pulsed, a new layer of reality was stripped away. The walls of the cathedral didn't just fall, they peeled back to reveal nothing. Not a night sky, not deep space, just a yawning, gray static that hurt to look at. It was the sound of a dead television channel turned into a physical place. The 666 souls began to scream then, as the void wind started to howl. It wasn't a wind of air, it was a wind of information. It was tearing the memories out of our heads. I looked at the person next to me and I couldn't remember what a human face was supposed to look like. Was it supposed to have 2 eyes? The detonation was unraveling the blueprint of our souls. We were being squeezed through the eye of a needle. The 666 were being compressed into a single, screaming point of data to be fed into the maw. And as the blast reached its peak, the thing behind the veil finally reached through. A hand made of dead stars and old sorrows, stretching out from the crater of the altar, grasping for the first of the 666. The detonation was the dinner bell. Now the guests have arrived. The abyss does not simply take you. It claims you through a process of spiritual evisceration. From the jagged, weeping hole where the altar once stood, the Reapers emerge. They are not demons. Demons have faces, agendas, sins. These things are absence given form. They look like tall, spindly silhouettes wrapped in bandages made of dead skin and static. They don't walk, they flicker through the room, appearing and disappearing in the space between your heartbeats. The reaping is systematic. It is a terrifying, mathematical harvest of the 666. One of the entities drifts toward a group of followers huddled in the corner. It doesn't use a blade. It simply reaches out a hand that is too long, with too many joints, and touches a man's forehead. We watch in frozen horror as the man's identity is sucked out through the point of contact. His tattoos fade from his skin, his scars vanish, the color leaves his eyes. He becomes a blank, a human-shaped vessel of gray clay. Then the Reaper folds him. It bends his bones in directions they were never meant to go, snapping and crunching until the grown man is the size of a suitcase, and then it tucks him into the folds of its static cloak. One down, 665 to go. The panic that erupts is useless. The doors to the cathedral haven't just been locked, they've been deleted. Where the grand oak entrances once stood, there is now only the seamless, pulsing meat of the abyss. We are trapped in a stomach that is slowly beginning to digest us. The Reapers begin to sing. It is a sound that bypasses the ears and vibrates directly in the frontal lobe. It is the sound of every regret you've ever had, amplified 1,000 times. Under the influence of this frequency, some of the 666 stop running. They fall to their knees, their minds broken, offering themselves up. They begin to claw at their own faces, trying to tear off the self to make the reaping easier. The Reapers move among them like harvesters in a wheat field, their long, shadowy fingers dancing through the air, plucking souls like overripe fruit. But the Abyss is a cruel mathematician. It doesn't just want the bodies, it wants the total sum. I see a mother trying to hide her grown son behind a fallen pillar. A Reaper flickers into existence behind her. It doesn't kill her. It forces her to watch as it reaches into the air and pulls out a strand of her son's timeline. We see a spectral image of him as a child, then as an old man he will now never become. The Reaper eats the future first, devouring the light of his potential until he is nothing but a hollow shell of now. Only then does it collapse him into the void. The air is now thick with the soul mist, the vaporized remains of those already taken. It tastes like ash and old copper. You can hear the voices of the taken whispering from the shadows, begging us to join them, telling us that the abyss is warm. But their voices are wrong. They sound like they're being played through a broken radio. The geometry of the cathedral continues to betray us. The floor begins to tilt at a 45-degree angle, but we don't slide. Instead, gravity becomes selective. I see 10 people fall up into the ceiling, which has turned into a lake of black bile. They splash into the dark liquid, their muffled screams bubbling up until they are pulled under by pale, translucent hands reaching from the depths. The count is dropping. The air grows colder with every soul harvested. The Reapers are moving faster now, their movements becoming a blurred dance of needles and shadows. They are no longer selecting individuals. They are reaping entire sections of the room. A wave of darkness rolls across the pews, and when it passes, 30 people are simply gone. Not dead, gone. Their clothes hit the floor in empty heaps, still warm, still smelling of sweat and fear. I am hidden in the shadows of a collapsing archway, counting. I am watching the tally. The Abyss needs 666, and it is a perfectionist. It doesn't care about mercy. It doesn't care about screams. It only cares about the zero. And as the 300th soul is folded into the cloak of a Reaper, the entity stops. It turns its faceless head toward my hiding spot. It doesn't have eyes, but I feel the weight of 1 billion years of hunger staring into my soul. It knows I'm counting. It knows I'm the one trying to stay real in a world that is becoming a dream. The reaping is halfway done, and the true horror is just beginning. Because now, the Abyss is starting to run out of the easy souls. Now, it's coming for the ones who fight back. The reaping was the harvest. This is the processing. The cathedral is no longer a building. It has become a biological void. The darkness isn't just an absence of light. It is a physical, oily membrane that clings to your skin, vibrating with a low-frequency hum that turns your stomach into a knot of acid. We are the 300 remaining, trapped in the belly of a god that hates us. In the chaos, The first thing to die is geometry. I watch a group of survivors try to run toward a distant archway. They run for what feels like hours, their legs pumping, their breath hitching, but they aren't moving forward. The floor beneath them is stretching at the same rate they run. They are on a treadmill of infinite stone. They look back at me, their faces elongated by the distance, and I see their features start to melt. Without the anchor of reality, the human form cannot hold its shape. Their skin begins to sag, dripping off their bones like hot wax, pooling on the floor. They aren't dying, they are becoming part of the scenery. Their screams aren't coming from their mouths anymore. The screams are coming from the walls themselves. The darkness has developed a hunger for more than just souls. It wants our definitions. I see a man staring at his own hands. As I watch, his fingers begin to branch like coral. Tiny, pale eyes open in his palms, blinking in the violet gloom. He tries to scream, but his tongue has turned into a nest of silver needles. This is the mutation of the void. The abyss doesn't recognize human biology. It sees us as raw clay, and it is sculpting us into things that can survive in the nothingness. Around me, the 666 are being distorted into a liturgy of flesh. I walk through a hallway that wasn't there a minute ago. The walls are lined with the faces of the taken. They aren't dead. Their eyes follow me, darting frantically. They are fused into the masonry, their nervous systems wired into the cathedral's new, abyssal architecture. Every time the core at the center of the room pulses, these people twitch in unison. They are the new wiring. They are the insulation for the abyss. The air itself has become aggressive. Every breath is like inhaling ground glass. The void wind is no longer a draft, it's a predatory force. It whispers secrets that rot the mind. It tells you that your mother never loved you, that your children are already forgotten, that the world outside has already moved on as if you never existed. It's a psychological flame. I see a woman sit down and simply unravel. She begins to pull at a loose thread on her sweater, but the thread doesn't end. She pulls out her yarn, then her veins, then her memories, until she is just a heap of gray string on a floor of teeth. Time has lost its sequence. I see the same man die 4 different ways in the span of a single minute. I see him crushed by a falling pillar. I see him evaporated by negative light. I see him turn into a cloud of flies, and I see him standing perfectly still, weeping. All of these versions of him exist at once in the chaos. The abyss has shattered the now. We are living in a kaleidoscope of agony where every possible death is happening simultaneously. The architects are watching us from the ceiling. They aren't the reapers. These are larger, ancient things, vast, translucent entities that resemble deep-sea jellyfish made of frozen smoke. They drift through the upper reaches of the dark, trailing long, stinging filaments that taste the air. When a filament touches a survivor, that person doesn't scream. They simply turn inside out. In a wet, sickening explosion of anatomy, their internal organs become their exterior, and they are hoisted up into the dark, dangling like macabre ornaments in a temple of the unmade. We are no longer 666. We are a mass, a single, writhing organism of terrified meat, being digested by a shadow that has been waiting since the first star was lit. I find myself standing at the edge of a pit that shouldn't exist. I look down and I don't see the bottom. I see the rest of the world. I see the city outside, the cars moving, the people drinking coffee, totally unaware that beneath their feet, the fabric of their reality is being eaten by a cancer of obsidian and blood. The chaos is loud. It is a roar of a billion voices screaming in reverse. It is the sound of the universe's hard drive being wiped. And in the center of the dark, I see the altar, or what's left of it. It's no longer a stone. It's a heart. A black, beating heart the size of a house, pumping the blood of the 666 into the veins of the abyss. And I realize, I'm not just a witness. I'm the rhythm. The abyss is a machine. A cold, celestial engine designed to process souls. But even machines can choke. I am standing in the center of the nightmare, waiting for the end, when I see it. A flicker. Not a flicker of light, but a flicker of failure. A man is being processed by a Reaper just 10 feet from me. The entity reaches for his throat, its shadow fingers ready to fold his reality into nothing. But the man doesn't dissolve. Instead, he loops. He screams, his head snaps back, and then, glitch, he is standing 3 feet to the left, silent. Then he screams again. Snap, boop, snap, boop. The Reaper pauses. It doesn't have a face, but I can feel its confusion. It reaches out again, and its hand passes right through the man as if he were made of static. The ritual has a bug. The 666 were meant to be a purity of intent. The sect promised the Abyss 666 willing souls, 666 hearts beating in perfect, fanatical unison. But they were wrong. They didn't account for me. And they didn't account for the 666th. I look at the altar, that massive, beating heart of obsidian, and I see the stutter. It's skipping a beat. Every time it skips, the entire cathedral reloads. 1 second I am standing on a floor of teeth. The next, the floor is solid stone again for a microsecond, before plunging back into the meat slurry. This isn't transcendence. It's a systemic crash. The architects in the ceiling are descending now, and they are not graceful anymore. They are falling. They are hitting the ground with wet, heavy thuds, their translucent bodies twitching as they try to recalibrate to a reality that is refusing to be eaten. One of the great jellyfish things drifts near me, and I see its filaments are tangled. It's accidentally tasting itself, its own cosmic anatomy turning inside out as it tries to process its own void matter. It lets out a sound like a cathedral organ being played with a chainsaw. The glitch is spreading. Because the count is wrong, because one of us is terrified instead of devoted, or because the 666 soul was already dead before the altar exploded, the Abyss is choking on the sacrifice. It's like a throat trying to swallow a jagged stone. The horror becomes aggressive. The Abyss is trying to force quit our reality. To fix the error, it begins to delete everything in the room indiscriminately. It's no longer picking souls, it's deleting concepts. I watch as the color blue disappears from the world. Anything that was blue simply becomes a hole in space. Then, the concept of solid begins to flicker. My own hands become gas, then stone, then liquid, then a series of mathematical equations hovering in the air. Fix it, the voices of the Abyss roar. Not in words, but in a pressure that makes my eyes bleed. Complete the sum. The Reapers are losing their shapes. They are becoming jagged shards of black glass, flying through the air like a horizontal hailstorm, shredding anything they touch in a desperate attempt to find the missing variable. They aren't reaping anymore. They are butchering. I see a woman sliced into 1,000 thin ribbons, and each ribbon begins to crawl in a different direction, trying to find a way out of the glitch. I realize then, the Abyss doesn't just want us. It's trapped here with us. The door didn't open all the way, and the frame is crushing both sides. We are locked in a room with a starving god that is currently breaking its own teeth on our bones. The glitch is the only thing keeping me alive, but it is also the thing that will make my death last for an eternity. If the ritual doesn't complete, I will be looping in this moment of agony forever. I am the 666th. I am the error message in the center of the Occultic Abyss. And the Abyss has just decided it's going to reformat the entire world just to get rid of me. The glitch didn't save us. It just paused the execution. To stop the reformatting of the world, I realize there is only one direction left to go in. The maw isn't just the hole where the altar stood. It has expanded into a throat of rotating, concentric rings of black glass and frozen screams. I begin my descent. I'm not walking. I'm falling upward into a vertical sea of oil. As I enter the maw, the aggression of the abyss reaches a fever pitch. This is the inner sanctum of the architects. They are no longer shadows. They are towers of negative flesh, miles high, pulsating with the rhythm of a dying star. They are weaving the 666 souls together into a single, massive liturgy. I pass through a layer of the maw where the souls are being stripped of their memories. I see them, drifting like pale, eyeless fish, their mouths hanging open as their childhoods, their first loves, their names, are sucked out of them and stored in vessels of silence that line the throat of the abyss. The heat here is black heat. It doesn't burn the skin, it burns the mind. It's a dry, psychological sizzle. I see the high priest again, or what's left of him. He is fused into the wall of the maw, acting as a living valve. His body has been stretched until he is 30 feet long. His ribcage opened like a set of double doors to allow the void ichor to flow through. He is still conscious. His eyes find mine, and in them, I see the end of all things. He isn't praying anymore. He's laughing, a sound like dry leaves skittering over a grave, because he has seen what's at the bottom. I am descending into the stomach of God, and I am the poison. The further down I go, the more the abyss tries to digest me. The walls of the maw begin to sprout sense organs. Thousands of tongues lick the air as I pass, tasting my fear, my history, my The architects want to know why I won't break. They send inquisitors, entities made of mirrors and rusted wire, to peel back my eyelids and show me the truth. They show me that the 666 were just the first bite. They show me the infinite abyss, a map of the world where every city is just a waiting altar, every human being just a battery of meat waiting to be drained. The horror isn't that we died. The horror is that we are fuel. I reach the cusp, the bottom of the throat. Here, the core of the altar is a sphere of pure, unadulterated nothing. It is so dark it creates a physical pain in the center of my forehead. Around it, the 665 souls are held in a state of permanent detonation. They are frozen in the moment of their greatest agony, their screams turned into a standing wave of energy that powers the bridge to our world. I am the 666 soul. I am the final key. The maw opens wide, and I see the Grand Architect, a thing that is not a creature, but a geometry of hate. It is a series of shifting, black cubes that contain the echoes of every extinct species in the history of the universe. It reaches out for me with a gravity hand. It doesn't want to kill me. It wants to install me. It wants me to take my place in the altar, to complete the circuit, to stop the glitch, and to let the abyss finally, fully devour the world. The pressure is making my teeth explode in my gums. My blood is boiling in my veins, but it's turning black. I am becoming abyssal. I am at the center of the Occultic Abyss, and the only way to close the maw is to become the very thing I am trying to destroy. I am standing at the singularity of the sun. The Grand Architect is hovering inches from my face. It is a shifting, black hypercube of infinite edges, and inside its translucent layers, I can see the 665. They are suspended in chronostasis, their faces stretched into masks of eternal, silent shrieking. They are the mortar, they are the glue, and I am the missing brick. The severance isn't a physical act. It is a spiritual suicide. The abyss begins to upload me. I feel my nervous system being pulled out of my skin like silver wires, connecting me to the other 665. I can feel their thoughts. A tidal wave of 665 different lives, 665 different ways to suffer, all crashing into my brain at once. I see the high priest's childhood trauma. I feel the mother's grief. I taste the fear of the young man fused into the floor. I am no longer an I am becoming the 666. The architect whispers, not in sound, but in direct knowledge, that if I simply surrender, the pain will end. The glitch will vanish. The world will be consumed in a painless, gray unmaking. But then I see the mistake. In the center of the architect's geometry, the very core of the altar, there is a node. It is the anchor that connects this nightmare to our reality. It is made of the very first drop of blood spilled at the start of the ritual. To close the abyss, I don't need to fight the shadows. I need to sever the link. But the link is me. To stop the 666 from becoming the bridge, I have to uncount myself. I have to commit an act so violent, so spiritually illegal, that the abyss can no longer recognize me as a soul. I reach into the negative light of the altar's core. My hands aren't hands anymore. They are charred husks of shadow. I grab the node, that pulsing, crimson sphere of the first blood, and I don't destroy it. I swallow it. The aggression of the abyss turns into cosmic rage. The architect screams, a sound that shatters the remaining stained glass of the cathedral miles above us. The 665 souls begin to vibrate so fast they turn into heat. The final severance begins. By internalizing the anchor, I have turned my own body into the lock. The negative flesh of the maw begins to collapse. It's like an umbrella being folded with a person still inside it. I feel my bones being crushed, my soul being shredded into non-existence. I am pulling the abyss back into myself. I am a black hole of human suffering, sucking the architects, the reapers, and the 665 back into the zero. I see the faces of the others for one last time. For a split second, the pain leaves them. They aren't feel anymore. They are just dead. They begin to dissolve into white ash, falling like snow into the dark. The architect tries to flee, but it is tethered to me. I am the 666th, and I am refusing to be the bridge. I am becoming the wall. And oh, the void roars. The sum must be complete. The sum is zero, I think, as my heart beats its final, agonizing thud. I reach out and cut the final thread of my own existence. Not my life, my existence. I erase my own name. I forget my own face. I delete the that is doing the thinking. The altar doesn't just explode this time. It implodes. It collapses inward with the force of a dying galaxy, dragging the entire occultic abyss into a single, silent, microscopic point of nothing. The severance is complete. The 666 are gone. The altar is gone. And as the light finally, mercifully dies, I realize that the only thing left in the universe is the silence. The world did not end. The sun rose the next morning over the city, indifferent and pale. But where the cathedral once stood, there is now a void scar. A perfectly circular crater, 300 yards wide, lined with a substance that isn't glass and isn't stone. It is stillness made physical. The authorities called it a seismic anomaly. The media spoke of a gas pocket detonation. They counted the missing. They put names on the news. But they were wrong. They counted 665 names. No matter how many times they checked the census, no matter how many dental records they pulled, they could never find the name of the 666th. I am that missing variable. I woke up on the edge of the crater 3 days later. My skin is cold, not the cold of a winter morning, but the cold of a deep-sea trench. When I breathe, I don't see mist. I see a faint, violet static. I walked into the city, but the world feels thin, like a painting that hasn't quite dried. That this severance saved the world, but it didn't fix it. I see the shadows now. Not the shadows of trees or buildings, but the holes. Sometimes, when I walk past a stranger, I see their face flicker for a microsecond. A flash of the abyss, a hint of the meat slurry the architects wanted to turn us into. The abyss is gone, but it left its fingerprints on everything. And the silence? The silence is the loudest thing of all. I can still hear the heartbeat of the altar, faint and rhythmic, coming from beneath the earth. It's not beating because it's alive. It's beating because it's waiting. The 665 souls I saved weren't released. They were archived. They are still there in the 0 point at the bottom of the crater, waiting for the sum to be corrected. I sat in a coffee shop today and watched a clock on the wall. The second hand ticked, and then it glitched. It moved backward for a fraction of a second before continuing. No one else noticed. But I know what it means. The disseverance was a temporary repair. The wall I built with my own soul is starting to crack. The abyss doesn't forget a debt, and it is still short one soul. It is still hunting for the 0. I am the 666th. I am the survivor of the Occultic Abyss. And every time I close my eyes, I see the Grand Architect reaching out from the dark, adjusting its geometry, recalculating the math of the end. Next time, it won't use an altar. Next time, it will use the world. And this time, I don't think I'll be enough to stop it.